Bristol Airport handles up to 150 flights a day, and each takeoff and landing has to be guarded against a bird strike.
It's very important to keep birds off an aerodrome. Obviously, bird strikes cause damage to aircraft. The bills currently run to millions of pounds. It's a job that is day in, day out, 365 days of the year. I've been here Christmas Day as well. We use various pieces of equipment to keep the birds off the airfield. This is the primary piece of kit we've got. It produces distress calls of the species you wish to get rid of. For instance, selected at the moment, we've got the rook, starling, lapwing, herring gull, and the black-headed gull. These are all stored on chip in this system. Basically, this system, if it was put into our sort of language or our behaviour, it would be saying, "Help, get me out of here, somebody's got me." Now, that's all right, that's fine, that may work for a few birds that aren't used to it, but you'll get crows and other birds will get used to the actual noises and see no threat. So we have to back this system up by actually getting out of the vehicle. Tower, this is Ranger, firing a pyro in the 27 undershoot to the south.
Ranger Tower, next landing to 737 at 4.5 miles.
Roger. Got one at 4.5 miles, so I can ratchet this off.
Methods like this are often aimed at crows, but distress calls and explosions don't always work.
If you get a really hardcore of crows, 2 or 3, that'll hold a territory, then really there's only one option that has to be looked into, and it is very rarely that we do have to do that, and they have to be taken out, because what will happen is, undoubtedly, these birds will be involved in a bird strike, and it's our intention not to let that happen, and we will get between that bird and the aircraft and deal with that before they get to that stage.
And keeping the birds away from arriving and departing aircraft isn't achieved by scare tactics alone. It also involves the careful management of grassland that covers 3/4 of the airfield.
Not many people realise this, but we've also got to manage the grass on the aerodrome. There's a requirement for us to keep the grass at 6 to 8 inches. Currently at the moment, as you can see, this is a little bit more than that. It requires its first topping cut. The ideal of long grass policy is birds do not like long grass. They like to have good all-round vision. And if you can't see through that, you can't see predators approaching from afar. It's also, number 2, more difficult to actually feed on the invertebrates down in the soil, and also sometimes taking off in it. It hampers the actual takeoff run for the birds. So basically it's hostile to birds, where short grass doesn't have that. We take a silage cut off of this grass in June, and there's quite a good reason why they take the silage crop in June. And one of the reasons is all the major species of birds that are likely to cause problems with the aircraft, we call them the priority group, such as your gulls, are away on breeding sites. Therefore, you're not going to get the level of bird activity then because of the short grass when he takes the crop. And this grass will then grow back to a little bit more than this level, and it's then topped off 6 to 8 inches. What we usually do is set the cutter about 10 inches, so it gives a nice uniform cover over the entire airfield. Long grass, some people think, well, you know, have it up here, but the problem is you get that height, you get pheasants in it, you'll get partridges in it, all sorts of things like that, which you don't want in it. But there is a plus to the long grass policy that we've got here. We've got a very good population of skylarks. The skylarks are becoming increasingly rare on farmland now, simply because of the farming practices that have been going on. Now, where we take our cut in June, usually they've got 1 or 2 broods already out the way. So basically the grass is nice and long. Now, they don't mind long grass, your skylarks. They'll get their chicks reared up, gone, they get the second brood down, and come June, July, the grass is taken away, and basically they've had a good season. We've done a little bit for the environment as well.
As you know, today you're going to have the task of conducting a single pilot IFR flight with me acting as your passenger.
Okay.
You're also responsible.
It's going to be a big day for trainee pilot Paul Allison. After years of study and hard work, the time has come for him to take his final examination.
When we meet next time.
Right.
As for the routing,
If he passes, he'll soon be able to apply to an airline for a first officer's job and a flying career he's set his heart on.
What I'd like you to do is to plan an IFR flight to arrive at Cardiff at 10 Zulu.
Paul has spent more than 50 hours on the simulator at the Bristol Flying Centre and in the air preparing for this examination.
Following the ILS,
Civil Aviation Authority examiner Captain Graham Clifford is briefing Paul on the flight and its route and lists some of the problems he'll be expected to overcome during the next couple of hours.
in the course of that missed approach, there'll be a simulated engine failure. Okay? Once I've seen
you need a huge amount of motivation to go into this because the applicants, the students, are spending a lot of money in a very short time. So they need to be properly motivated to get through all the ground studies, the ground examinations, and the various flying practical training courses they have to do. Requires a lot of concentration, and very often the guys are distracted enormously by the normal pressures of life, family life, need to go to parties, see girlfriends, and of course to keep the bank manager happy. But he's got the flying skills, he's proved that quite happily, with no problem at all with a first-time pass. So practically he has no problem. He's more worried now about time. He's got quite a lot to do. He's got to do the aircraft weight and balance. He's got to check out the paperwork that goes with the aeroplane to make sure everything is legal and in date. And he's also got to do the detailed planning. The flight plan has to be in an hour before our departure time, so that's quite critical. And obviously, he's most conscious of not making any mistakes. And that's really what is occupying his mind most of all, this need to avoid error.
55 hours worth of training seemed like a lot at the time, but not so sure about it now. Quite a bit of training in the sim and on the aircraft, and done the similar type of routes already, but it's the idea of the CA examiner sitting there costing over £600 for the privilege to have him sitting next to me, plus the aircraft. So I got money into account, taken away in the back of my head, want to get a first-time pass to impress people on future jobs. So nerves are building up, but just got to try and relax and just go for it. Previous tests, I get quite nervous, but once I'm there, I tend to settle down and just go along with it. And as long as he doesn't take control, then at least I know I haven't completely failed. But best not be too cocky about some things, a bit blasé, but I'm still quite early on in my training, quite low experienced on the hours, so I haven't got anything to be too cocky about, really.
And what makes this final test so difficult and so different from all the others he's had to pass is that for this one, he's flying blind. His view out of the front of the aircraft has been blocked out by a number of screens, so that Paul must rely totally on his instruments. It's as if Paul was flying the whole route in cloud or at night without anything else to guide him. On top of that, he'll be asked to carry out a number of maneuvers and overcome a simulated engine fire. And if that's not enough, he'll be expected to fly a precise and accurate course from Bristol across to Cardiff and down into Somerset at the same time.
It's correctly titled a skill test, but overall the guy's got to operate within the aviation environment. He's got to operate amongst smaller, slower aeroplanes and of course the commercial jets running behind you. So the overall awareness, the coping with the environment is the most important aspect. Within that, the skills have to become really second nature.
A couple of extremely stressful hours later, and Paul is bringing his aircraft back into land at Bristol. All the effort of the past years rests on the outcome of today's examination. It will decide if he has a future as a commercial airline pilot or not. A simple handshake confirms that everything has gone well. For Paul, it's time to start looking for that airline job. On the training ground at Bristol Airport, it's time for an exercise in the hot box.
The hot box is designed to teach a number of things. Teamwork in a difficult environment, which heat and smoke traditionally is, especially in a domestic or an aircraft type situation, to enable the guys to get acclimatised to decent temperatures to try and provide realistic training. Well, at 1 metre we're normally about 100 degrees, and at 2 metres we go up to about 250 degrees. That's centigrade, and that's the upper limit, the 250 degrees centigrade. We're not allowed to go much beyond that. But I mean, we're well protected. We've got breathing apparatus sets, they've got good fire kit, they've got flash hoods, helmets, gloves, everything. If there's a problem, it's possibly that they're overprotected, because you're always battling against the firefighter thinking that he's immune from any danger, that he's invincible, and of course they're not.
Right, this is the standard entry to any premise which has a door. You crack it open, you give a quick pulse spray, close it, crack it open again, and now they should look to start making an entry. You keep down low because of the heat barrier. The idea of this now, they're going up some stairs so as they actually go through heat barrier, and they experience the different temperatures. This facility, although it's quite basic, it's very effective.
And while the firemen are moving around inside the container, it's getting hotter and hotter. It's a test of nerve, stamina and skill, and vital if the men are ever called upon to fight an aircraft fire at the airport. The hot box has become a regular part of everyone's training, a reminder of the conditions they may one day have to face.
Hold on, hold there, hold there. Just hold there, son. Come down. Come down, feel the heat. Stay below the heat barrier, take a gauge check. You done a gauge check? What's your turnaround time? Be careful about putting your knee on the ground, because if that gets hot, you'll get a burn, you'll get a scald.
Towards the end of the exercise, it's going to become almost unbearably hot, even with all their protective gear. Spraying water on the roof above the fire will mean the container filling with superheated steam, and conditions 10 times hotter than the hottest sauna. After braving the heat, smoke and steam, it's time for the debrief and first reactions to the hot box exercise.
Well done, boys, that's good.
The heat got to us towards the end, I think.
That was good. Good teamwork, especially down the stairs. Good demonstration there following Robbie. Correct way to access a staircase, right. Either upwards or downwards, right? Stick to the wall, right? And especially coming downwards. Yeah. You check the floor below you before you go on to the next step, right? You did regular air checks, that was good. You need to work on your turnaround time. I want you to understand fully what that means, right? So if we get anything protracted, then you know what it is you need to look for, right? All right. Yeah. But you'd worked yours out, so you were right as team leader. You'd worked that out. That was excellent. All right. Any points, you?
No, just notice when you put water on the fire, the steam coming down, it's getting hotter and hotter. Yeah. Otherwise, it's fine.
It's 6 o'clock in the morning, and a Britannia Airways crew arrives to prepare for a very special journey. Inside the terminal building, their passengers are starting to check in, although the early hour finds many of them still in a very sleepy mood. But tired or not, this is a trip they wouldn't be missing for anything. 300 local children and their parents are off on a day trip to find Father Christmas in Lapland.
Got Ryan then, who's Ryan? Hold you, Ryan, please. 9, well done, and then Scott.
And to get everyone in the right mood, there's even a conjurer on hand.
Just two, squeeze your water, can you pinch your water really, really tight? There you go. Ow, ow, ow. Blow on your hand really hard. That's it, and open it.
1, 2.
Out on the tarmac, the first passengers are starting to arrive and board the aircraft for their special journey. It's an important flight for Britannia, and station manager Steve Mackay has turned out to wish everyone a safe journey.
It's fabulous. It's something that we do every year. It's something that we do every year. We've got a couple of different companies that charter us, and it's really special. It's fabulous. You all right, guys? You're very quiet. What's wrong this morning? Have a fab time, sorry. Yeah, 330 passengers. It's the largest that we operate into here, and it's good fun. Everybody really enjoys themselves, including the crew. You've seen them all dressed up this morning. They're up for it big time. What time is it now? 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're already on a high. The crew love it as well as the passengers. I'd go now if I got the chance.
Even though they're off to Father Christmas Land, it's pretty cold in Bristol, just around freezing in fact. Before the Boeing can get underway, the airport's de-icing team make sure the plane is free of any ice which would otherwise affect takeoff. And today that's going to be more important than usual, because this 767 is one of the largest aircraft ever to use the airport. It means there won't be much runway to spare at the critical point of takeoff. And once safely into the air, it's time for passengers and crew to get into the Christmas spirit.
Well, it's completely different to our normal holiday flights anyway, especially dressed like this. I mean, I don't normally dress like this, only on my days off. We've got all different crew on today from different bases, and we don't know each other, so it's a new experience for us getting to know the crew as well as getting to know the passengers. Unfortunately, some of the girls have left their families behind at home, and I know one of the girls that's travelling with me today, she's not even been able to tell a little 6-year-old that she's coming because he wouldn't have been able to be barely to live with, you know, because of it. I think everybody's like really wound up to have a good time once they get there, and it's something very exciting for the children, and I think all of them on this flight believe about Santa Claus and everything, you know. I think it's something magical for all of us.
3 hours later, and the Britannia Boeing touches down on a snow-covered runway 300 miles inside the Arctic Circle, joining a dozen or more aircraft on the same day out. Outside, the temperature is well below freezing, and a fresh fall of snow gives everyone the type of Christmas scenery they were hoping for. Because it's so cold, it's vital that everyone on the flight has the right clothes to wear. So for those that need special clothing, the first stop is at the local fire station, which has been converted to a clothing centre for the occasion.
Reindeer are wild animals, and we have here in Lapland about 100,000 wild reindeer in the forest. We have trained these reindeers to pull a sledge. These reindeers are kind of a stubborn animals. They can be like mules. Sometimes they decided to stop between, if you have people on the sledge, he decided that, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, I go to sleep or I start eating or something. Or sometimes they are very eager to pull a sledge. It's just in what mood they are.
It may be just a few hours away from Bristol, but in Lapland at Christmas time there are just a couple of hours of daylight. For the Britannia passengers, there are reindeer and husky rides in the darkness, even though it's just 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But after the rides, it's time for the real purpose of the trip.
Can we have the children over here first? First children, please.
Calling in on Father Christmas himself.
Oh, we've got the lighthouse. Thank you, El. Oh, who is there, he said. Oh, what are you going to tell him? Who is he? Coming. Hello. Is that so nice? Hello. Can we come in?
Yes, come in. Have you written letters for me? Yes. Okay, let's see. Chelsea. Chelsea.
Olivia, we left yours in your bag.
Yes, Chelsea. There you are. Come here. Is it for you? Happy Christmas.
And no visit to Lapland and Father Christmas would be complete without a present.
And then Michael.
Although it's his busiest time of the year, Father Christmas still manages to enjoy himself, despite all the hard work in the days to come.
After Christmas, I'm exhausted. But that's worth it. I like Christmas.